Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and welcome to the Endeavour Space Camp Challenge Introductory webinar. We will start in just a little bit. I think we are still waiting for a couple of people to come in, but I hope everyone is having a good Monday so far, a good start to the week. So just some housekeeping rules before we start. If at any point of time anybody has any questions, please feel free to type it into the chat box and we will monitor it. And then if the question is relevant at the moment, we will try to answer it at that point of time. Otherwise, we will just answer the questions during the Q&A section at the end. Otherwise, the webinar will be recorded and it will be shared with all the participants today. So if in case you miss anything at any point of time, no worries. You will have a recording of this for your reference after the webinar ends. Yeah, so with that said, I think we can just go ahead and start so we don't take up too much of everyone's time today. I know it's a Monday, it's everyone is a bit you're not too keen to complete too much work. But yes, so let me just quickly jump into things. Yeah, so I guess everyone is here because you're interested in finding out more about the Endeavour Space Camp Challenge 2022, which is being hosted by the Kalman Foundation, which is a worldwide organization that helps to in line with the air shows around the world. And the Singapore representative, the Singapore Organizing Committee is space faculty. So we are helping to oversee the challenge here in Singapore as part of the Singapore Air Show taking place next year. So a little bit about who we are. Space Faculty is a spin-off from Singapore Space and Technology Limited, which is Asia's pioneering space organization established in 2007. And we focus on space education and training for all ages. We do everything from space camps to space entrepreneurship and nanosatellite training for anyone aged from 5 all the way to 75. It's what we like to always say. And the scholarship, the Endeavour Scholarship is hosted or is run by or managed by Kalman Worldwide Inc., which is a STEM education program under the Kalman Worldwide Inc. group. And it's called the Astronaut Worden Endeavour Scholarship to reward aspiring explorers and their teachers with a hands-on astronaut training experience in space camp in Huntsville, Alabama, every year. So this is the second time we are running this challenge. The first one was run 2 years ago at the last Singapore Air Show. And you can see here the winning team from Singapore amongst the other teams, including from Bahrain as well as Dubai. So every air show every country will send one team to represent them at this space camp in every 2 years, right? So a little bit about the challenge itself. The challenge itself, the Endeavour Space Camp Challenge, would be slightly different from what you might typically see of a space challenge. This year we are focusing on getting students to create a space shuttle or spaceship, which is designed to transport Titan's first colony to the planet or to the moon, which is a 7-year journey to Titan. In case anyone doesn't know what Titan is or what Titan is a moon. It's one of Saturn's moon. It is a 7-year journey to get to Titan. And it is currently the one other possibly habitable planet or moon or a planet that is not a planet, it's a moon, that could potentially support life form. Of course, this is all partially fiction. There is some science to support that Titan can support life form, but that is still very much a explorer's dream or space explorer's dream. But we are working towards that. And what we're doing is we're trying to challenge participants or students to design a space shuttle that will be able to transport Titan's first colony, which will consist of 15 men, women, and children on the 7-year journey there. So this kind of taps into the recent a lot of excitement around space tourism, around civilians being able to explore space and not just trained astronauts in the industry. So what we're trying to get students to do is to come up with very innovative products and solutions that will improve your passenger experience and help shape the future of space travel. So this is an ode to for all those who love sci-fi movies and books and novels. This is where your time to shine really comes in, because this is where you can put your craziest ideas into a project and submit it and potentially win you a trip to the space camp in Huntsville, Alabama. So what are the students expected, or what are teams expected to submit? For your submission, it's a very simple, straightforward submission. It is a video presentation that is no more than 6 minutes long. This is very strict. Any video that is more than 6 minutes long will be disqualified. So we are very strict with the time, and we expect all your ideas and proposals, ideas to be uploaded into YouTube and the link to be sent to us for the judges to review. Along with your video, please submit a one-page, just a very simple one-page proposal summary that summarizes your idea, what your idea is about, maybe a little bit about where your inspiration came from, as well as your team, who your team members are, your team name, and the name of your spaceship, essentially. So this is a very much an open, creative competition. We're not going to limit you to decide what you want to put into your challenge, into your project, or into your ideas. The project your space shuttle can consist of anything and everything that you want. Honestly, if you want to build a farm within your shuttle, go ahead. If you want to do an elaborate housing system within your shuttle, you can go ahead with it. But here are some considerations. Obviously, this is still very much a science space exploration competition, so there are some considerations that you do need to take note of, or you can potentially try to incorporate into your project. It doesn't necessarily have to, it's not compulsory for you to take into consideration these things, but it would be good if you could. So this includes the spaceship's life support system. How are you going to provide oxygen, water, food to all your passengers for 7 years? So if you don't know how the International Space Station currently gets its supplies, is through regular resupply missions. Obviously, if you're doing a 7-year journey on a spaceship that is constantly moving in the very vast and open space, resupply missions are going to be a little bit difficult. So your spaceship needs to be self-sustaining. Likewise goes with waste management system. Whatever waste this is, it's up to you to decide. It could be bio waste or just general food waste or all these kind of things. What are you going to do with the waste? Are you just going to store it on your spaceship for the next 7 years until you land, which is possible if you could come up with a very good storage idea for it. Otherwise, it's a bit of a biohazard. Which is the last thing you want to do, because if you're in space for 7 years, medical supplies is going to be an issue. Keeping your passengers healthy, all these kind of things. So yeah, I guess this is really something that there is really no limit to what you can include onto your spaceship or what you should exclude. It is entirely up to the teams to decide what they want to put into their spaceship. This is really free for all, how you want your spaceship to look, whether you want just one spaceship, or you want 3 different spaceships in concurrent. Entirely up to you. This is very much an open like I mentioned, an open creative competition. There is no limit to what you can do. But if you're going to take into some considerations, there needs to be some scientific support for whatever you're doing. So obviously, if you're going to talk about saying that you want to create water on your shuttle, how are you going to create water for your shuttle? There has to be some scientific supporting evidence for that, which kind of leads me into maybe we do this later, which kind of leads me into the grading criteria of the challenge. So the grading criteria for the challenge is 35% will be awarded to technical characteristic, which means how technically and scientifically accurate your idea is, as well as the viability of your concept, how feasible it is to actually design a spaceship as such. Obviously, it's going to be a little crazy. That's okay, because you're going to be coming up with ideas that maybe people haven't seen before, and that's perfectly fine. And that's where your points kind of come into creativity. So how creative your spaceship is, how creative you are in coming up with ways to sustain life on your spaceship for 7 years. What are the features of your spaceship that makes it stand out from other space shuttles that make it possible for people to live on this shuttle? Do you want to be floating around in 0 gravity for 7 years? Or are you going to have some sort of gravitational simulation or life simulation on board your spaceship? Things like that you want to take into consideration. As mentioned, the biggest component of your submission is your video, which is a 6-minute long video. So that's going to take up 20% of your grade. So we are really encouraging people to be as creative get as creative with their ideas for their video as possible. You could do it as an animation video. You could do it as a skit. You could do it as a presentation if you want. Of course, it's 20% of your video, so I would not highly encourage a presentation. But if you are confident in the creativity and the technical characteristic of your idea, go ahead with just a simple presentation. But there are different ways you can do this, right? Video production quality, we take into consideration everything from your camera technique to your audio quality to your editing to your lighting, and as well as how engaged the audience is, how fun we find your video. And then the last part is quite interesting. It's an interview. So shortlisted participants will be called in for an interview with our judging panel. And in this interview, you will be asked to kind of state your motivations and goals to take part in the Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama, as well as some of your ideals for the space industry, and maybe your own personal ambitions. Just give us a second. So these are the general grading criteria for it. We will share we might share a more detailed rubric once the competition has officially launched. So once registration closes, we will share a more detailed rubric with the participating teams. But at the moment, this is what you can kind of look at in terms of what we're looking at judging wise. Second. So yes, the prize, as I think a lot of people already know, is a trip to the International Space Camp program, which will take place in Huntsville, Alabama, USA, from the 3rd to 8th of July 2022. So the camp dates are 3rd to 8th of July. The teams will officially will leave Singapore on, I believe, the 30th of June. And they will fly back on the 9th of July, which means they would probably arrive around the 11th of July. So the entire trip will be from 30th of June all the way to 11th July. The scholarship covers all your flights, your accommodation. If you don't know what the Space Camp in the International Space Program in Huntsville, Alabama is, it is a very renowned space camp program that takes place every year. There is on-site boarding. So you basically live on the campsite. I take it as like summer camp. Food is provided, and accommodation is provided, and you'll be taking part in various activities as well as tours throughout the 6 days. So yeah, you can see some photos here of the students taking a tour of the facilities and what the facilities look like on the outside. So it's a full immersive program. It's immensely fun from what I've heard from people who have taken part before. And I believe it'll be extremely rewarding for anyone who gets to go. So this will cover the winning team, which will comprise of 4 students, along with their teacher or chaperone, along with one teacher or chaperone to go with them on the trip. And as mentioned, it will cover your tuition meaning the course fee, the full 6-day camp course fee, the dormitory accommodations, your meals throughout the week, return economy air ticket from Singapore to Alabama, as well as all ground transportation in Alabama. The only thing that this doesn't include is the cost of maybe renewing your passport if necessary, and any associated travel requirements costs. So this includes any potential COVID test that you might need to take. As far as I know at the moment, it is 2 PCR tests to go and return from the US. Of course, this might change in the next couple of months. So we are constantly monitoring the guidelines and restrictions at the moment. But at the moment, it is 2 PCR tests, from what I understand, to come back, and an ART test to go there. As well as any travel insurance will need to be covered personally by the participants. But otherwise, everything else will be covered there. And of course, if you are in the few days that you are in Alabama and you go around, that is also on your individual cost. So the guidelines for the competition it is open to all students from secondary schools, institutes of technical education, JCs, and centralized institutes and polytechnics. Students must be no younger than 15 years old and no older than 18 years old. I know here it says as of 9 July 2022, but we checked, and as long as you are turning 15 in 2022, you are okay to go. As long as you're not turning 19, as long as you're not 19, it only applies to 14. So 14 years old, if you are 14 and turning 15 in 2022, you would still qualify for the challenge to attend the camp. Each project group, like I mentioned, must have 4 members, and each school is permitted to submit up to 5 project teams. So this is more for the teachers to take note of. Each school, you cannot have more than 5 teams per school. Each student may only join 1 team, and only Singaporeans and Singapore PRs may participate. Although we have gotten some note that they have Singapore-based students who are not Singaporeans or Singapore PRs. We are checking on that note at the moment, but I have not heard a result for that yet. But do let us have some time to get back to you, and we will check on this. The participants must work on the projects themselves. Teachers can only provide guidance and advice, and no animal experiments is permitted in the video. So essentially, this is what we are, the basic guidelines for the project. And this is the timeline that we're looking at. So currently we are at the introductory webinar. Registration will close end of this month on the 23rd of November. And between 23rd of November, you will have approximately a month to work on your projects, which the submission deadline is at the end of December. So just take note that the project submission deadline, we will follow up with the teams. We will follow up with the teams when registration closes on more details, like I mentioned, about the rubrics, as well as how you can submit your projects, and the guidelines to that. In January would be the grading by the judges, as well as the shortlisted teams will be called in for team interviews, and the prize presentation ceremony will be held at the Singapore Air Show. So sometime between the 15th to 20th of February, This might change depending on on the dates of the air show, but tentatively we are set to have the prize presentation ceremony sometime between the 15th to the 20th of February. And then obviously the winning team will have between February to July to prepare for their to go to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama. So this is essentially everything that I have to share. If you have any questions regarding the challenge at the moment, feel free to ask in chat and I'll be happy to answer them. This is kind of the time to ask any questions you might have. Yeah, so feel free to type anything you have into chat. Yes, it is free to sign up. From Angeline, I see. It is free to sign up, but you do need to sign up through your school. Because we do need a teacher chaperone to go with you for the actual camp. So you do need to sign up through your school, but yes, it is free to sign up. What is the total delta V budget for the entire trip and what is the maximum acceleration point? We are not rocket scientists and we don't know how to calculate it. Okay, so there is no kind of budget for the trip. This is an entirely I guess when you talk about when you're saying the trip, you meant the trip from Earth all the way to Titan and not the trip to Huntsville, Alabama. But there is no fixed budget for this. It is essentially an unlimited budget. We are not taking into consideration financial costing for this because we realize there would be students to be trying to come up with technology that may not necessarily be financially easy to calculate at the moment. So there is no budget. Maximum acceleration point, I don't really know that actually. I don't think I think it will be okay if you don't take that into consideration. I'm not a rocket scientist either. But if you do find a way to calculate it, that would be great. But I'm pretty sure if you go online and look up for answers like this, you might be able to find it. Some crazy scientists might have done some calculations on this. By living, can it include animated suspension? Possibly. I'm not going to say no. If you have an idea for that, go ahead and do it. It will be pretty exciting to see what you come up with. I think when we came up with this concept, as long as the colony is alive when they arrive on Titan and are able to function, then yes. Can clarify? Okay, so someone just PM'd me. So to clarify the age, requirements, if you are turning 15-year-old by next December, by the end of next year, so by 31st December, you will qualify. So even if you aren't 15 yet, when the camp takes place, you will qualify. However, for 18-year-olds, you will need to remain 18 until the camp. So you cannot be over 18. You cannot be over 18 when you are attending the camp. So let me go back to this point. So here I think it says students no younger than 15 years old and no older than 18 years old as of 9 July 2022. For 18, it still stands, but for 15-year-olds, you have actually, as long as you're turning 15 in the year of 2022, you will still qualify. I hope that's not too confusing. Are there any other questions anyone might have? You can talk about any crazy ideas if you want to ask me, and I can let you know whether it's possible or not. Although I think in this stage, anything is pretty much possible at the moment. Oh, maybe in just to give you guys an idea of what kind of video you can do, I can possibly show you what the last year teams did. Last year winning team submitted for the competition. And that will give you nuclear fusion reactors considered feasible. Well, I guess they are if you can even so as long as there's some scientific evidence to support that this is something that can potentially that this is some sort of technology that can potentially be developed in the future, may not necessarily be the near future. Obviously, we're looking at 2130, so it's nowhere near, it's it's nowhere near now. But if there's, I believe there are some some websites that come up with theories for potential technology that may be essentially possible in the coming century, decades, whatever it is. Nuclear fusion reactors are feasible as long as you can justify it with some sort of scientific reasoning. Obviously, it might not, obviously, it's not going to be very foolproof because a lot of these technology are still very much in the hypothesis stage. But if there's some scientific evidence to show that it could be possible, yes, I would say that that would be still considered feasible. Of course, you do need to make sure that everyone on your spaceship is safe and will be safe. So let me just quickly share what the teams Are there any sort of boundaries or limits as to what we are allowed to do? Like unproven theories that are somewhat grounded? Yes, go ahead. There's no limit. There is no limit to that. Yeah. What happens if we win the competition but end up having other commitments during the trip period? Can we opt out? That would not be ideal. We would actually, this is actually going to be one of the questions during the interview stage, actually, which is whether you can commit to the trip that will happen in July. So obviously that will be in January, so it's a bit closer. But ideally, you should not. In the case that you do opt out, I will have to discuss with the Common Foundation, but we may push the price to the second team. So in the case that any one member might not be able to make it, obviously I understand sometimes that life happens and things come up last minute. Obviously, we'll take that into consideration as well. We are not entirely, I believe everyone is quite understanding of different situations, especially in this period. But as much as possible, we would ask for the team's commitment to go on the trip in the case that they win the challenge. Because for one, flight tickets are quite hard to change at the moment. There is obviously a lot of restrictions, so everyone needs to kind of do the required testing and getting the required visas. Do note that to go to the US, you do also need to apply for a visa. Yeah. Let me just quickly pull up the winning team so that everyone can kind of have a idea of what we were looking at last year. Obviously, you could do something completely different this year. Fine.
Have you ever wondered how humans can survive on another planet? What would the living conditions be like? And how can we utilize the available resources to ensure our survival?
Hi, I'm Gerald from Ping Secondary School, and these are my teammates, Fabian and Sean. In this video, we will be proposing how we can build a colony for humans to live beyond the stars.
Titan, the largest moon in Saturn's orbit, is one of the most unique planetary bodies observed in our solar system.
So for some context, the competition last 2 years ago was for teams to design a habitat on Titan itself. So this year we're designing a spaceship that goes to Titan, but which is a build on what we originally had the students kind of design 2 years ago.
In the outer solar system. What it discovered on its descent was a landscape that resembles Earth in more ways than one. Titan has clouds, rain, rivers, lakes, and seas of liquid hydrocarbons like methane and ethane, which contain more than Earth's oil and gas reserves. Most importantly, it found a large bedrock of exposed water ice that wraps nearly across half the moon, and even oceans of water that lies below the crust. These conditions on Titan give us a good chance to survive and establish a sustainable colony. But first, how do we get there? It takes as long as 6 years and 9 months to reach Titan from Earth. Let's take a conservative figure, and let's say it takes at least 7 years before any humans land on Titan. What would the astronauts do in the meantime? And what about their living requirements? We suggest using metabolic stasis, a process to how animals hibernate to survive with minimal resources for long periods of time. This will allow astronauts to save space and mass, along with fuel, food, and boredom on the years-long journey to Titan. And now we have finally arrived at our destination. Titan's thick atmosphere offers protection against sun's harmful radiation, and thanks to the atmospheric pressure on Titan, which is 1.5 times that of Earth, astronauts can walk freely around on its surface without the need for a pressurized suit. But wait before you start stripping! Titan's average surface temperature is a freezing negative 176 degrees Celsius, and there's no oxygen in the air. So make sure you stock up on oxygen masks and thermal protection before starting to venture outside. Luckily, Titan's protection from the sun's radiation means that astronauts are in no hurry to dig deep into the ground to shield themselves. Instead, we propose that astronauts use inflatable self-contained igloos that can be easily set up and anchored safely to the ground. Titan's gravity is only 14% of Earth, so we can look forward to astronauts breaking Earth's high jump records. The dense atmosphere also means that astronauts can practically fly. What can be done to provide the astronauts with oxygen, water, and food?
Titan's air consists of 95% nitrogen and 5% methane, so you'll definitely need a long supply of oxygen. Luckily, we can create oxygen through the water ice and the oceans that exist deep below.
The process that we're using is called electrolysis, which splits water into oxygen and into hydrogen with the use of electric current. This is a prototype that we made, and I'll be using this with the school setup in this video.
As you can see, the water is splitting into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen could be used for the astronauts to breathe in, while the hydrogen could be mixed with acetylene for the hydrogenation process for energy.
Sorry meat lovers, it is probably not possible to bring livestock to Titan. Food will consist of crops and plant-based materials that can be grown easily using high-tech farming to make up for the lack of sunlight. The lakes of hydrocarbons detected on Titan can be harnessed to provide energy. Otherwise, electrical power could be produced using chemical power plants by mixing hydrogen and acetylene crystals found near the lakes. The strong tidal pull of Saturn and its effect on the Titan's lakes, such as Kraken Mare, means that hydroelectricity is also a possible source of energy.
Of course, getting to Titan may sound like an impossible mission. We will need scientists and visionaries who dare to dream the impossible today, so that our future generation can become the Titans of tomorrow.
All right, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what you can do for your own project. Obviously, every team, we encourage every team to take kind of their own approach. This was slightly different where they were asking to look at Titan itself and use the environment to generate a livable habitat. So the challenge is slightly different. Can we include an annex in our one-page report for any extra stuff? Volume and mass calculations, fuel calculations. Yeah, sure. Again, so I should point out that an annex or an annex should be only used if the information you find is not compulsory to be read. If you find that this is very much crucial to your own to your project. So the one page report doesn't need to include your calculations or whatever. It's mostly just to summarize what your project is about and the key points of your project. But yes, if you want to put any calculations or scientific support into your annex, go ahead. Don't it's just a one-page report, so don't dump everything into your annex thinking that people will read it. Do we need to take into account landing on Titan itself? You don't have to. If you want to, you are perfectly free to go ahead. You can take into account how to launch your rocket, because it's obviously going to be quite a substantial rocket for 50 people. If that's something that you want to use your 6 minutes on. Again, the only restriction for this challenge is your time limit of your video as well as your one-page report. So what I always tell students is, if there's an area that you're particularly interested in, go for it. So if you want to focus on the design of the shuttle itself or the spaceship itself, and you want to dedicate more time to that, go for that. If you find that your strengths are in talking about launch calculations and landing mechanics and things like that, you can focus on that as well. But yes, again, this is quite a free-for-all, very open, and up to you to decide what you want to do. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to encourage all students to get creative, to have fun, because I personally think this is quite a fun challenge. This is not something that it really, I guess, thrills anyone who's into sci-fi, or it's like a love letter to sci-fi novels and movies that you always want to write. Do all participants get a certificate? Yes, all participants will get a certificate for participating as well. Do we have any other questions? Obviously, I do ask that students do not overtext themselves. I see some of you here that are from some of our other programs. There are no there are no consolation prizes. Unfortunately, there's only one prize for this challenge. But every participant who takes part will get a certificate for participation. And I believe if it allows, all the shortlisted teams also may get invited to attend the air show, Singapore Air Show next year as well. For the shortlisted teams at least. Obviously, this depends on COVID restrictions, but I believe that is the plan at the moment. So that would be quite exciting, because the air show could be quite an experience for everyone. Are there any other? If there are no other questions, we will end the webinar for today here. Like I mentioned, I will send the recording to everyone who registered for the webinar, so you have something to refer to if you need it. Otherwise, feel free to email me, to drop me an email if you have any questions. I will post my email into the chat so that everyone can have access to it. So if at any point you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop me an email. Otherwise, you can also go to our website. Go to our website to find out more about this challenge. And I will also share the website link in the chat so that you have a reference to go to. But otherwise, if there are no more questions, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I just wanted to keep it short and everyone have a better idea of what this challenge is about now. And yeah, and I wish everyone who decides to participate the best, all the best for the challenge. And I look forward to seeing your projects and submissions if you're going to take part. I've seen some very exciting questions here, interesting questions here today. So I do expect some quite exciting submissions. Nice. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Angeline. Have a nice day as well.